get a worldwide business going. And so I think that, and that's just one example of the ingenuity that Americans have had in the past and will continue to have. So I've got a lot of faith in my fellow Americans. Okay, wow. I've already talked 47 minutes. That's hard to believe that I've already talked 47. I printed out all this news to cover, and obviously I'm not going to cover much of it. I'll tell you what, let's open up. No, let's not open up the phones. I'm going to try to cover a little bit more news. And during the last 5 minutes, want to talk a little bit about the upcoming Ron Paul campaign and how exciting that's going to be for 2012. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, speaking of the economy, you know, I guess most of y'all keeping up with the news here on Infowars.com. And I know a lot of y'all coast-to-coast fans and Drudge Report fans, etc., are fully aware that they've got the G20 going on in Cannes, France. Cannes, France, and Obama's over there, and a lot of world leaders are there. And we've had this European economic debacle going on now for months. And one of the things that we've all been expecting, and I think will certainly at some point come to fruition, will be that they're going to pump a lot of liquidity into that European economy. And I think ultimately they'll be pumping a lot more liquidity into the U.S. economy. But they've slowed down on that to some degree, I think, because of the protests of info warriors and people like ourselves worried about them overinflating the economy. But I think it's still probably going to happen because the NWO literally has to walk a tightrope, I think, when it comes to just how bad the economy can be allowed to get. And in Europe, if they really pull in their horns and have that austerity, remember I was talking about how in Europe earlier, a lot of these alternative energy companies are subsidized to a great degree, and it sounds pretty bad that a lot of them are subsidized, but I guess the flip side is that, you know, besides there are probably a lot of top-level people in some of these subsidized alternative energy companies that are stealing the money, kind of like when we send billions of dollars to other countries around the world, a lot of times that crooked leadership runs off with a good-sized chunk, sometimes maybe even a majority, maybe even 80 or 90% of the millions or billions that we give to other countries. And I think a lot of that sometimes does happen with these government subsidies to these alternative energy companies and other companies. But nonetheless, at least a little bit does find its way into the hands of the regular working Joe. So when they pull the plug on these things, it's going to cut back on some of these jobs, and it's going to cut back on these upcoming alternative energies. And it's, like I said, not necessarily that I'm a big fan of it. It's just that the level of industrial espionage with regards to the energy prices is what I'm talking about and concerned about. So anyway, they're having the G20 in Cannes, France, and they're discussing boosting that liquidity through the IMF, which ultimately, I think the IMF and you folks out there in the audience will probably agree, the Federal Reserve and the IMF, there's probably not a whole lot of difference. They're linked at the hip. They're like Siamese twins. So look for that to happen, because I think that the NWO has to be concerned that if they allow their economy to really go down the tube and really go down the skids, that more and more people wake up. That's the danger is, yeah, they put a lot of people out on the street. They put people out there homeless. They put them out there destitute. They're on the European version of food stamps, et cetera, whatever. But more and more people wake up to who the gangster banksters and the geopolitical leaders and movers and shakers really are. So they've got to walk an economic tightrope there, and that's why I think that they will ultimately flood Europe with liquidity, and they're going to figure out ways to pump it out there, even if they have to subsidize basically any kind of upstart company, any kind of mom and pop company. They'll probably end up doing it, which ultimately will end up most likely being highly inflationary. But at least, it's kind of like they inject a little bit of morphine to make the patient feel better, temporarily at least, and then they have to inject more morphine with this liquidity. So it looks like after months and months of wrangling and haranguing, that it may finally happen over there in Europe, and the United States will definitely be involved in helping make that happen. I think the European leaders are appealing to the U.S., and basically Obama has responded that they're on their own, but, they're really not. The Bernankes are going to be involved, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this European debacle. And I've got mixed feelings about that, because one thing I've noticed is that, if Europe experiences a depression, and in some cases it is a depression like Greece, I'm sure most of that country, a lot of that country is at a depression level, then I think they will further take our economy down into depression. So that's where we've got to be prepared, got to do the best we can to get ourselves out of debt, to get ourselves as self-sufficient as possible. And even, like I say, if you've got a job with a big corporate entity, I would definitely be looking for other ways to supplement my income. And InfoWarsTeam.com is a great place to do it. And also, I think it's key to support this show. I haven't mentioned it yet, but InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. This is part of the InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com that we're doing today, a full 27 hours. We've got Alex will be coming on later in the broadcast today at in about 6 minutes. We've got Charlotte Iserbyt coming on with an interview, and then at 8 o'clock live via Skype will be Gerald Celente. So keep on listening to InfoWarriors, and I want to continue thanking this audience. And I tell you, Alex Jones is a powerful individual. He's done a lot by himself. He proves every day that one man can make a difference. Let me say that again. He proves it on a daily basis that one man can make a difference. But I tell you, without this audience, even Alex Jones, as powerful of an individual as he is, without you out there in the audience, he wouldn't be near as powerful as what he's become today. And it's very exciting to see his operation continue to grow. He gives back to the community by hiring fellow patriots and other people and bringing them on board. And he really is now looking to this upcoming year go out on the road and meet more InfoWarriors and visit more areas of the country and talk to more people out there. All right, we've got 5 minutes to go. Didn't cover hardly any of the news that I thought I'd cover. No surprise there. I guess it happens to me all the time. Even when I was doing Access Cable TV, that's what would happen. I would be ready with all this news and couldn't cover it. But, all right, that red tide still kicking me in the chest. But one of the most important things we can do, along with supporting InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com, along with supporting InfoWars.com, and along with supporting Ron Paul on his website, Ron Paul 2012, is we've got to get ourselves to the precinct conventions and precinct caucuses in these upcoming primaries. Folks, it's going to be critical. We need to get out in front of this right now. You need to get your yard signs out, your bumper stickers out, do what's called drive-by canvassing. Do that right now. Learn where your precinct is. Get your map, go to your county, call up whoever you need to find out where your precinct boundaries are, where they lie, and get a map of your precinct. And now is the time to get those bumper stickers, yard signs out. Go out and find your neighbors, your fellow neighbors out there with bumper stickers and yard signs for Ron Paul or like-minded candidates. There's other candidates, I'm sure, in your areas that are along the lines of Ron Paul and InfoWarriors. Go out there and find your neighbors in your precinct. Those are going to be the first ones you want to find, and you guys get together and call a huddle and make out a plan to attack and take over the rest of your precinct. And by that I mean politically speaking, of course, is go out and get lists of primary voters on both sides of the aisle, left and right, Democrat and Republican. Get those lists. You can focus on if you've had races in the past with a Ron Paul type candidate in your area, then it makes it even easier to try to locate your friends out there in your precinct. Because, for example, here in Texas, we had Deborah Medina run for governor back in 2010, and during the primary in my precinct, I think she ended up getting 30 or 40 some odd votes in my precinct. So I could look at the list of primary voters from the 2010 election, which in my precinct only encompassed about 80 votes in the Republican primary, of which Deborah Medina had like 30 or 40 votes. So there's only 80 doors, actually less than 80 doors that I need to knock on in my precinct to find my 30 or 40 Deborah Medina voters, because a lot of these households, it might be husband and wife, or, son and daughter, or whatever, that are voting age, that have voted from that one household. So use those strategies to find your fellow info warriors, to find your fellow Ron Paul revolutionaries, etc. And the time to find those folks in your precincts is right now. This is dead serious right now. Our best opportunity to make Ron Paul the Republican presidential nominee for 2012, our best opportunity is going to be via the convention process, because you can fully expect the NWO is going to swing those levers and hit those switches and punch those buttons to black box us at every turn. You see them black boxing us, so to speak, in these so-called scientific polls. Alex proved back in 2007, in the fall of 2007, and I'm surprised he never talks about it, but Alex actually commissioned a poll back in the fall of 2007 to show that Ron Paul was one of the leaders, if not the leader, and even the poll he commissioned tried to skew the poll that Alex had commissioned. It was amazing, and maybe he'll talk about that in the upcoming future programs. But even in the major so-called mainstream polls, watch for the shenanigans there. Alex proved that it goes on in the polls. So don't trust the polls. Don't trust these pollsters. Don't trust anything. Take action. Get out in your precincts and motivate and connect with your fellow info warriors. Think about this. Think of it, if a total economic depression calamity happened, how important it would be to know your like-minded neighbors. Just for that reason alone is why you should connect to your neighbors. So get out there, get in your precincts, get to know your fellow info warriors, and then when it comes time for your precinct convention, your precinct caucus, this upcoming 2012 election, it's absolutely imperative that you show up with every Ron Paul supporter and info warrior you can muster to these events, because if we end up being a majority in the precinct conventions, and that's politics at the atomic level. If you have an atom if you have like 10 atoms and 80% are Ron Paul atoms and 2% are Rhino atoms in each precinct convention on average, then guess what? When it comes to the Republican National Convention, we will be a majority, and that's how Ron Paul gets to be the Republican nominee. Okay, I'm already a little bit over. Folks, we've got a great interview with Charlotte Iserbyt coming up, so stay tuned. This next hour, Charlotte Iserbyt, then Gerald Celente coming up live via Skype right after Charlotte Iserbyt, and then Alex Jones will be back later today to wrap up with the 27-hour Money Bomb, InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. Folks, get out there, email to your friends, call your friends, let them know, and make this Money Bomb a success. InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. Richard Reeves signing off for now. Thank you very much.
Skull and Bones, the order at Yale, 15 of them selected out of every junior class. They paid. Wall Street financed Hitler, financed Stalin, creating communism, which is what they did. That's all very bad, and Skull and Bones is all involved in that with the order.
They concerned the build-up of the three types of socialism: Bolshevik socialism in Russia, what we might call welfare socialism in the United States, and Hitlerian or National Socialism.